Fear tightened Maya Carter's hands while she typed the message. The room smelled of instant coffee and soggy laundry. She hit send at 1:13 a.m., thinking the text would go only to Jonah. The screen said delivered. She did not expect an unfamiliar name to reply. The reply arrived 5 rings later. A single line offering calm, nothing more. Maya kept her fingers hovering over the thumbprint sensor. The word fear sat in the knot of her stomach and pushed her forward. She read the reply aloud to the empty kitchen and then, because she had no other option, she answered. Maya's first sentences were practical. Where are you? How much? And what will happen if we don't pay? Because the problem in front of her was specific and immediate. Jonah needed the fee cleared by Monday. Jonah had been panicking. Jonah had thrown his backpack at the door and demanded they figure something out now. She chose words that could keep him safe and keep their landlord from changing the locks. She lived in a 3rd floor walk, up above a laundromat. The heater in the hall clanked at odd intervals. A crooked poster for community college night classes curled on the bulletin board outside their door. Concrete steps ran slick with last week's rain. Those physical details mattered, because every time the debt collector's name appeared on a call log, a hand reached out to take the future away from her and Jonah. When the unknown reply said, "I can help," Maya blinked at the blue bubble and felt a shift. Fear loosened into suspicion. She typed 2 polite refusals and then, because Jonah's voice shook when he talked about winter and overdue notices, she wrote, "Please. He'll lose the scholarship if they evict us." The man responded with a curt question, "Where are you?" And Maya, who had never told a stranger where she lived, sent a tired photograph of the building's chipped brick and the small metal plaque near the entryway that read, "Vale Relief, 2019. She meant the picture only to prove the address. She did not know the plaque's true name. She only knew the numb thrill at the corner of her ribs when she realized the plaque's letters matched the surname on a contract she'd read in the job board posting. Vale Foundation. Maya's suspicion slid into a new emotion, curiosity edged with guarded hope. She read the incoming message twice. The reply was brief and unadorned. "I'm on my way." She imagined a taxi, a dark suit, a briefcase. She imagined the worst, a charity check the size of their rent, and imagined Jonah's pride crumbling if she accepted. Jonah burst through the door then, boots squeaking, breath loud in the quiet apartment. "Maya," they called again. "Rios," he stopped when he saw her phone lit on the table. He leaned in, eyes sharp. "Who is that?" "Who messaged you?" "Maya, unknown." He can help." She kept her voice flat because she had learned to make decisions without letting Jonah see panic spread. Jonah tossed his backpack onto the couch and said, "We don't take charity, Maya." He moved like a small animal trying to keep his balance under stress. He folded his arms. "We work or we don't get help." "Jonah, this is different. I don't know who he is yet. He might be a private lender. He might." Maya stopped herself. She could already hear their landlord's threats. 3-day notice, court papers, a forced move. The sentence left unfinished was a fear she refused to name. She texted back to the unknown line, "Wait in the lobby. Keep lights on." She keyed her apartment door open with one shoulder and peered down the dim stairwell. The building's fluorescent hallway light flickered and hummed. She imagined a man in a suit standing under that light. She pictured him checking his watch. Maya felt another internal shift, from fear to a brittle, protective pride. If help arrived, she would accept only conditions she could live with. She would not be humiliated in front of Jonah. She cleared her throat and told Jonah to sit with the bills, to count them again, to make the list look smaller. Down in Ethan Vale's penthos, the blue dot of Maya's photo pinged across a glass desk. The assistant's voice through speaker said first thing Monday on the merger, Ethan. The sound of the corporate calendar was a drill in the silence. Ethan Vale tapped his fingertip against the edge of the screen and then typed 3 words in reply. "Where are you?" Maya did not know the man who lived above the city towers. When she glanced at Jonah and then at the thread, She imagined a stranger offering money and disappeared into the apartment's shadow. She had grown up learning to solve problems herself. Asking for help meant admitting she could not do it. The stairwell door opened with the scrape of a hand. Rain slicked the stoop outside with a thin sheen. A pair of shoes stepped into the lobby. Jonah's shoulders tightened like a brace. He muttered, "Stay in the back," which meant what it always meant. Protect the younger one by appearing calm. Two heads appeared beneath the hallway light. A debt collector's slick profile, and the shadow of a taller figure in a long coat. "The debt collector, Rios," said the landlord's name, and his voice contained the impatience of someone who had made a living convincing people to let go of the things that tethered them. "You got till Monday, Carter," Rios, tapping his phone like a judge with a gavel. Jonah stepped in front of Maya physically, as if distance could change the numbers on an invoice. "We retrying, Jonah," his voice wavered. "We'll have it." "You don't have it," Rios answered. He reached for the notice folder. His breath smelled of old tobacco and cold coins. Maya texted the unknown number again with one trembling thumb. They were at the door. She added an address to be precise, and then held the phone between both hands. The taller figure moved unnoticed in the corner of the lobby. Maya saw the coat first, its hem ending in a clean line above polished shoes. Then a cuff flashed, matte metal that caught light and did not shine. The man's voice cut across the claustrophobic space. "That's enough, Rios." Every part of Maya's body registered the sound that was not afraid and not ordinary. A measured baritone, even from across the lobby. She did not know the face yet. She only knew the posture, hands folded, a small pause between words, and the word fear flared again, different now. Fear of being seen. Rios straightened and pivoted. "Who are you? This is private property. I'm handling it," the man said. He did not raise his voice. Rios spat a laugh. "You're not a cop. You're not with the bank, either. This is none of your business." The stranger took one step forward. He laid a small card on the counter, white edge, embossed name. Maya could not read it from where she stood. Jonah craned his neck. "Who is that? Who are you?" The stranger looked at Jonah and then at Maya. Ethan Vale. "I own the building through Vale Relief. Cease this now or face a trespass notice." Those words landed with a physical weight. Jonah's jaw tightened. He spat out the first angry thing that came to him. "We don't need a name, Vale. Get out of here." Ethan's expression remained unreadable. He did not raise his hands. Instead, he opened his phone, swiped, and then spoke a single sentence to Rios. "Leave now, or I'll call the police and have you removed for harassment." Rios hesitated. The word harassment was a legal sharpness that could cut through his bluff. He looked at the man's cufflinks and then at the embossed card on the counter. He muttered something under his breath and left, without another argument. After Rios's boots faded on the wet stoop, Jonah exhaled a sound that came out like a broken laugh. Maya felt the adrenaline she had been living on drop and reveal other things. Raw tiredness, relief prickling at the back of her neck, and an odd, private gratitude toward the man who had arrived. Ethan did not linger. He stood on the lobby steps for a moment, palms in his coat pockets, and watched Jonah and Maya. Maya kept her distance because it felt safer to see him as a stranger. She read his name on the embossed card when she dared to pick it up. Ethan Vale. Jonah jabbed a finger at the man's card and said, "You could have let us be humiliated in front of him. Why did you come in the first place, Ethan?" Maya heard Jonah's anger as an instinctive defense, half the way a child throws something to stop a fight. Jonah's voice was high and brittle. "We don't owe favors," he told Ethan. "We work for what we have." Ethan answered once, simply. "I didn't want you to be threatened on my property." He turned to Maya. "Is he your brother?" Maya felt his eyes as an inspection. She puffed her shoulders back and said yes. "Jonah Carter." Her voice contained the same clipped edges she used on scholarship forms and on the phone with administrators. She refused to let him see that she had been crying the last hour. Ethan, I'll cover this month's notice. I'll also connect you with a counselor from the Vale Relief support list. But only if you come speak to Claire tomorrow. She's my assistant. His tone made the conditions sound like business terms written without judgment. Maya's reaction was immediate. Anger flickered up from a place that remembered pride like an old scar. We don't take handouts, Ethan. We don't use charity. Ethan did not argue. He lifted his hand slightly and thumbed the name on his phone's contact list. Fine, then consider it a loan you can pay back on terms we set. I want to know you can keep Jonah safe. Jonah's face softened for a second and then hardened. We don't owe you our lives, Vale. Don't think you can fix this by writing a check. Ethan's response was a flat measurement. I'm not fixing anything for you. I'm offering a path you can accept or refuse. The choice is yours. The exchange left the three of them standing in a silence that smelled of rain and cheap laundry detergent. Maya's hands trembled where she held the embossed card. She felt her mouth work around 1,000 possible replies and settle on one that would keep dignity intact. Tell Claire I'll come by tomorrow. But not for charity, for information. Ethan nodded once. The nod had no flourish. He walked away toward the staircase that led to the street. Maya followed him with her eyes until the city's neon blurred around his silhouette. She felt a small, strange relief that was not free from unease. Back in her kitchen, Jonah sat on the edge of the counter with the notice in his fingers and said, Maya, you should have told me you were going to do this. She snapped, I did tell you. I sent the photo. I thought. She stopped because the words thinned into the night air. Jonah looked smaller and more frightened than he had 5 minutes earlier. The threat had not left, it had only changed form. Maya made coffee and poured it into 2 chipped mugs. She set one down in front of Jonah and one on the table for herself. The mugs were the same ones their mother had left them, mismatched and stained. Physical objects anchored decisions. She ran her thumb over a coffee chip and then slid her phone across the table so Jonah could see Ethan Vale's name in the recent thread. Jonah read it and said, Ethan Vale, the Vale Relief, that's huge. His voice trembled between resentment and wonder. Are we actually going to take help from him? She pushed the phone toward him. He's connecting us with Claire. I'm going tomorrow. We can go, we can ask questions, we can say no. Maya felt the second emotion shift, from suspicion and fear to cautious planning. She needed concrete terms. She needed to know interest rates or conditions. She needed to know whether her pride could survive the ask. They argued in short, clipped sentences as they made a list of papers to bring. Payment records, Jonah's scholarship letter, the bank statement. Each item was a small battering ram against the abstract threat of eviction. Every 3 minutes an external sound intruded, an elevator bell, a late night truck, someone laughing down the street, reminding them the world moved on while their life tilted. Maya texted the unknown contact to confirm the meeting time and included an address for Claire's office she had guessed from the building directory. The reply came, see you at 9. The line read as businesslike and neutral. She typed, thank you, and then deleted it. She did not want to appear grateful. When she finally climbed into bed with a mug cooling beside her, it took her a long time to fall asleep. Her chest felt hollow in a way that was not emptiness but a waiting room. She imagined the arrival of paperwork, the smell of Claire's office, the pragmatic tone of someone who scheduled appointments like triage. The fear that had opened the night remained present, but now it shared space with a thin hope that she could protect Jonah and keep most of herself intact. Before dawn, Ethan walked back past the building in a slow arc. Maya watched through the blinds and saw his silhouette stop beneath the streetlight. For a moment he stood there without moving, and then walked on. Jonah slept on the couch with his hands clenched around a blanket. Maya set the embossed card beside the coffee cup and tapped the thread open. The last message, see you at 9, blinked on the screen. She put her hand flat over the phone and felt the hard edge of a decision pressing up from underneath. Accept help under terms she could live with, or refuse and risk everything. She chose to get dressed. The chapter ends with her slipping on a worn coat, the coffee cup cooling on the table. And Jonah, still asleep on the couch while her phone glowed with Ethan Vale's name at the top of a message thread, an offer made, a condition stated, and a small, deliberate step toward meeting Claire the next morning. Ethan read the message at 1:13 a.m. and felt a hard rush of guilt when the sender said the landlord would be by on Monday. The balcony door was open a crack. Rain hit the glass in staccato beads that flashed the city lights. He kept his thumb on the phone, staring at the simple line, "We need rent or we lose the place." And the word guilt moved through him like a physical weight, deciding his next small private choices. He did not let himself scroll the thread yet. He felt guilty because the message came from a number he did not recognize, and because his life, 2 floors up and 3 elevators over, ran on decisions that insulated him from this kind of panic. He had been careful for years. Privacy screens, minimal public exposure, a trained assistant who filtered invitations and emergencies. He had not signed up to be anyone's conscience. Still, his thumb hovered. Ethan slid his sleeve down to cover his hand and typed one cautious sentence. "Who is this for?" He hit send before he could rehearse any softer words. He was used to measuring every syllable, but the message arrived as a raw fact. A young woman named Maya answered with 3 short lines. "Jonah." He's 9. "Landlord tomorrow. I'm in doing finals." "I am so sorry." The responses felt too small for the panic that backed them. He read the lines twice. The name Jonah meant nothing to him, but the image formed anyway. A small boy at a kitchen table, counting coins, an unpaid notice folded in a corner. Guilt shifted into hesitation. He told himself it wasn't his problem. Then tested the idea by imagining Jonah awake at night while his sister worked a shift she should not have had to take. "Ethan." Mara from the doorway behind him. Her voice was low, the kind of directness he kept in a file labeled "practical friction." "You still awake?" She stepped into the lamplight of the study, tablet in hand. He showed her the screen. Mara read quickly, jaw set. The assistant had a way of turning compassion into a logistics problem in a single look. "Unknown contact," she said. "Could be a scam, could be press, could be leverage. You should not engage without vetting." Her voice made the stakes operational, and guilt condensed into caution. Ethan typed another line and then erased it. He could feel 2 currents pulling. One was the rational risk Mara articulated. The other was a memory that returned without herald, a smell of cheap coffee and detergent folded into a midnight study session somewhere he hadn't been in years. "Mara, don't alert security yet. I want to know more." His voice was flat, a practiced containment. Mara's eyes narrowed. "You know this could leak. Someone will notice you reached out to a number tied to a potential eviction. It's not private. It's a vulnerability." Her tablet glowed with the firm's calendar and a highlighted row he could not ignore. "A morning meeting that demanded a clean public face. If this becomes public, they will spin it. Call it charity theater or a distraction. You know how they frame it." That was the practical argument he feared most, exposure. Ethan felt the guilt shift again into resolve. He would not let a calculated fear of public optics become the reason he left a person at a doorway. He sent a discreet transfer to a third-party escrow account and a short message that offered a meeting. "I can arrange help." Neutral place. No names. He tapped send before Mara could stop him. "Garrett called in 2 minutes, sir." I flagged the number. "It's not been linked to any known scams, but it's on our watch list for odd inbound patterns." Garrett's tone was flat, but his worry cut through like a blade. "If you open contact, we should route through legal. Should be prepped. This is a funnel we've seen before." His words felt like emergency protocol. Containment, filtering, neutralization. Ethan Garrett, not a pra play. No records beyond what's necessary. He did not explain the feeling under the directive. the impulse to close the distance that his calculated life had kept remote. He only said what Mara and Garrett needed to hear. He closed his laptop and stepped back onto the balcony. Rain soaked the cuff of his sweater. The damp clung to the wool and smelled faintly of the cedar from his office shelves. He read the thread again. Maya's messages had begun to form a rhythm. Short facts, a line that said she was studying at a lamp and Jonah had a fever 2 nights earlier. She admitted a debt in the kind of small detail that made the ledger of her life look like a list of immediate needs. Ethan's phone dipped with a new message. Maya wrote, "I want to take charity. If you want to help, meet outside the building. My brother is shy about strangers." The line contained both defiance and a condition that framed how she would accept help, by preserving control. The refusal to be pitied landed in Ethan's chest and dissolved the neat categories Mara had tried to force on him. He typed a location that was neutral. A coffee kiosk 3 blocks from her building, and sent only the time. Then he waited. Mara paced in the study and tapped her tablet. Garrett's messages arrived in the feed. Risk analysis, possible exposure paths, contact names to monitor. Each practical item tightened the noose of consequences around his impulsive want to help. Across the city, Maya sat at a small kitchen table with a past "Do notice" under her palm. The stove ticked and she shaved the top of a stale coffee cup with nervous fingers. Her brother Jonah kept his head in a homework workbook, asking questions in fragments when he thought no one would hear him. Maya. Jonah, staring up at her, "Are we okay?" The line came out wrapped in a child's attempt at practical reassurance. She swallowed. "We'll be okay, Jonah. I'll figure it out." She did not say she had already emptied the savings, pawned a camera, and considered skipping a meal that week so Jonah could have lunch money. She typed the location Ethan had sent and studied the sentence until the letters blurred. Mara called again. "You realize you can't just walk into a stranger's life and fix things. There's precedent." She stopped, chosen words failing. "If you go, be discreet. No social presence, no pictures." Leave it at that. Her insistence felt, to Ethan, like a cord that taut between obligation and prudence. Ethan arrived at the kiosk early. He wore a cashmere sweater under a raincoat, collar up to guard his neck. He had left the briefcase in the car. The coffee steam condensed on the underside of the kiosk roof. He watched the street. People passed with umbrellas, shoes splashing shallow rivers along the curb. He saw a girl with a threadbare beanie pause to tie her shoe and then move on. He himself to keep the attention small and the meeting short. Maya appeared late, backpack slung, hair damp at the collarbone, lips pinched against rain. Jonah trailed behind, small and watchful, fingers curled around a worn pencil. Ethan recognized the pair immediately from the photos Maya had sent. Not photos, but the tone of the messages had drawn a mental image. He stepped forward and said, "Maya." His voice was careful. He kept the watchful warmth for strangers. Maya looked at him hard. "You're early," she said. Her voice had the quick, bright intonation of someone whose time was rationed. Jonah tugged her hand. "Maya." He asked again in a whisper that felt like an accusation and a plea. Jonah's eyes tracked Ethan's right hand and landed on the ring worn on his right hand. The ring caught a glint of streetlight and Jonah pointed, surprised. "Is that a ring?" "Jonah." Ethan answered, "It's nothing important." "Jonah." He wanted to say more, to explain the private world the ring belonged to, but the child's curiosity kept it simple. Mara's voice came through on Ethan's earpiece, soft and close. "Remember, no pictures, no statements, no direct transfers from your company accounts. Garrett will shadow this." The instruction hung between the practical and the invasive. They moved quickly through the transaction he had arranged. Ethan handed Maya an envelope closed with a rubber band. She held it at arm's length and then pulled it open with the same fierce control she had used when she said she would not accept pity. The money would cover the current arrears. She did not look at Ethan while she counted. "Why are you doing this?" "Maya," when the last bill was set aside. She looked at him in a way that tried to measure motive and truth. "Why would someone like you text me back?" Her voice was blunt, not accusatory, but it demanded a reason. Ethan kept his answer short. "I saw the message." Jonna, shouldn't he have to lose a home over rent? He expected her to hear the corporate phrasing and reject it. Instead, Maya pressed her mouth into a line and said, "I don't want a handout. I don't want you to think I'm selling my pride for a check." Ethan raised his hands. "Then don't accept a check. Accept a job. I can set up short-term tutoring that fits your schedule. It's paid, honest work." He offered the option because he needed a solution that did not reduce her to an object of charity. Maya hesitated. Jonna looked at the envelope and then at Ethan. "Job." Jonna, as if the concept had weight. "Would you come to our house?" Jonah's trust was literal and fast. Maya's jaw tightened. "I'll think about it," she said. She had an instinct to protect Jonna from obligations that exposed him to strangers. She added, "I won't let anyone do more than what keeps us afloat." Garrett appeared then. Not in person, but as a presence Ethan could feel in the line of his ear. "Sir," picked up chatter. A neighbor called and said someone in a suit came with an envelope. They redrawing conclusions. "Security recommends leaving now." Garrett's voice included a flat list of consequences that made the small victory taste precarious. The first emotion shift, guilt to hesitation to resolve, played out in public. Ethan felt the resolve sag under pressure. Garrett, stepped back. "Let me manage this face to face." He did not want to make this into a per item. But he also understood the machinery of perception would not stop because he asked it to. A neighbor stepped out onto the stoop then, rubber-soled shoes creaking on wet concrete. She loudly, "Are you giving out charity?" Her tone threaded suspicion with protective tone. She had lived in the building long enough to see patterns. Jonah ducked his head. Maya's shoulders squared. Ethan answered plainly, "No. It's help that keeps a kid in a room. That's all." He kept his voice steadier than he felt. He could see in the neighbor's eyes the arithmetic she used. If a wealthy man handed cash to a resident, rumors would follow. Mara whispered into his ear, "If this leaks, they'll paint it as a stunt. We have to control the narrative." Ethan imagined the headline rotation and felt the second emotion shift creep in, resolve becoming anxiety. He also felt a small warmth in the way Maya refused to be reduced. Later, in a narrow stairwell under fluorescent light, Maya confronted Ethan privately. She kept her voice low. "Don't come around my brother's place again unless you say you're coming. Don't make him a spectacle." Her hands were folded tight. "I don't want Jonah to think charity is the answer." Ethan met her eyes. He chose to answer openly, "I won't make him a spectacle. I asked only to make sure he had a roof for Monday." He felt his control fray and then cinch back in a different way, protection that did not demand gratitude. Mara called the next morning with a terse update. The firm had faced a rumor thread during an early board review. Nothing had gone public yet, but the risk had been tallied. Garrett sent a note that a security Slack feed had flagged a photo of a man leaving a stoop. That image violated the plan's privacy. Ethan read the messages with the steady breath of someone watching dominoes fall. He found himself at his office window after dawn, city light trying to pierce the cloud cover. Mara stood by the conference table with a legal pad and a pile of suggested statements. "We can frame this as an employee initiative," she said. "But you must accept some public posture, or we can distance the firm completely and let this be personal." Her options sat like knives waiting to be chosen. Ethan made a choice that revealed a shift from anxiety towards stubborn clarity. "Mara, make it personal. No company channels, no staged photos. If it leaks, I'm the one who will answer." He could hear the consequences measured in her intake of breath. He did not enjoy the cost, but he accepted it. The twist came later that day. Garrett sent a terse message with a photo attached. A neighbor had posted a comment under a local feed. The neighbor's post named Maya and attached a different image Ethan had not seen. The neighbor had a grainy photo from a building camera showing a thin figure arguing with a landlord weeks ago. Not this time. The post suggested a pattern of late fees and disputes. The feed started to interpret the envelope as payment for silence, not rescue. Mara looked at the post and then at Ethan. They'll paint this as payoff. They already are. The twist changed the earlier impression. The outreach that seemed simple charity now looked to outsiders like a resolution to a messy, private ledger. The perception had shifted the reality for everyone involved. Ethan called Mia. They may spin this. If you see anything online, don't engage. He kept the instruction simple. If anyone comes to you offering more, tell me. Do not sign anything. He forced his voice into short sentences because long ones invited misinterpretation. Maya, why trust you? The question had no theatrics, only a direct demand for proof of intent. Ethan, because I don't want you to lose the place. Because Jonna should sleep in a room that has heat. Because I can fix this without turning it into an image. He watched her decide, watched her accept the terms that preserved her dignity. Short-term help, paid work if she chose it, no public statement. That night the rain came harder. Ethan walked back toward the city, rain wetting his coat collar, Mara's tablet buzzing with updates. He felt the effects bleed into the professional day. A bored email, a terse check-in, a security briefing that enumerated exposures. Each step home felt like a one look on a ledger. He kept the feeling practical. What he had done would have consequences. But under the counting was a different ledger. One of small, human reliefs he did not list anywhere. At the doorway where the chapter began and ended in the same thin arc, Ethan left himself a single note on his desk. A reminder to check in later with Mia, and to ask Garrett to monitor local feeds for any further leaks. He put his phone face down and felt the last emotional shift that closed the chapter's movement. Resolve moved into wary patience. He had crossed an invisible line between his life and another, and the cost would be counted in ways he could not predict. He did not know how Jonna would remember the man who came with an envelope, but he knew precisely the sound of Jonna's voice asking if they were okay, a line that had pushed him to step off the balcony and into the rain. Ethan's walk back to the car ended with a compact, concrete consequence. Mara's message that a morning crisis would demand answers at the firm. He tapped a short reply, "I'll be in, no leaks." He stepped into the elevator, water dripping from his coat hem, and closed the door. The chapter ended on one more concrete event. His phone buzzed with a new message from Maya. It read, "Jonna slept through the night. Thank you." The message was a small ledger entry that matched the one he kept in his mind, and the night kept its small, uncertain victory. The knock hit the stairwell door so hard the cheap fluorescent bulb hummed and swung in its socket. A rectangle of paper slapped the wood beside the peephole. Someone had taped an eviction notice to the door and walked off. Maya grabbed the paper before their neighbor could finish the steps, fingers working as if they could erase the deadline printed in bold type. Payment due by morning or lockout. Fear pressed at the back of her throat and pushed her feet into motion. She shoved the notice into her pocket and pushed past Jonna halfway out of the couch, breath short. "Jonna, we have to move stuff now," she said, voice tight. Jonna blinked awake, rubbing sleep from his eyes with the heel of his hand. "What? Why?" he asked. Maya held up the paper so he could see the landlord's stamp and the time, midnight, and the formal language that left no room for begging. The apartment smelled of instant coffee and the damp of clothes that had sat too long in the machine. Maya thought of the wrong text she had sent 2 nights earlier at 1:13 a.m. She could still see the tiny dot that had turned into delivered, then into a reply from a name she did not recognize. Ethan. She had not meant for that thread to cross into real life. Now the notice clasped reality to it. Fear shifted under her ribs to sharp calculation. She lifted Jonna's backpack and started shoving folded shirts and a cracked picture frame inside without looking. "Pack the textbooks," she told Jonna. Take your laptop charger. Take the blue hoodie. Jonah moved more quickly once he understood, moving with the clumsy precision of someone trying to piece sleep into action. Down in the stairwell, somebody shouted. Mr. Harlan's voice had that flinty edge it always did when he thought money would get him what he wanted. You too. Papers Don T come off the door without me seeing, he barked. A shadow passed the top of the stairs. The hallway light bounced off Rain on the sill. Maya pressed the notice flat against the wall to hide the name and backed toward the door. She sent a message in a handful of words to the stranger who had replied to her wrong text. Please. In the message thread, Ethan's last reply, the one that had arrived when she expected Jonah's number, still sat on her screen. I'll handle it. She hit send. Her thumb hovered. She had no right to ask. But the phone was warm in her hand, and the stairwell outside was colder. Up on a glass balcony a few blocks away, Ethan read the same photograph Maya had just taken and sent. A white slip with midnight stamped in black. The picture arrived on his phone with the small caption, "We have to move by morning." He left the balcony door open a crack and watched Rain cut lines across the city. He thumbed a reply and then put the phone back into his pocket. He had told Claire he would not show up. He had not told Claire he could not sleep. Claire's message buzzed on his screen. "If you go, this leaks, Ethan." Pressing his jaw, he typed, "I'm going." He would keep it small and anonymous. He would hand an envelope to the landlord and leave. He slid on a wool coat, the kind that stopped rain and conversation, and stepped into the wet night. At the building steps, Mrs. Alvarez watched from her doorway across the street and carried a bag of oranges in a single mottled hand. She saw Ethan on the steps and frowned. She saw the way Jonah squared his shoulders in front of Maya, and she reached for her phone. Mrs. Alvarez. Maya, startled Don T. The landlord moved as if payment had been the point all along. Who are you? Mr. Harlan. Ethan on the stair, voice rising. Ethan's coat was wet at the collar. His cuff showed a matte watch as he pulled a slim envelope from his pocket and set it on the railing. "This covers the arrears through next month," he said. He did not hide his name when Mr. Harlan. He set money down like it was a small, blunt answer. Jonah stepped forward and said, "You can just take this and walk away, Mr. Harlan. Maya lives here. You gave notice without a meeting." Jonah's voice was raw in the night air. Jonah calmed down, Maya, but Jonah kept his position between Harlan and the envelope. The landlord's hand hovered over the envelope and then snatched it back as if the money scolded him. "This isn't charity," he said. "This is business." His words sounded like the building's pipes, harsh and inevitable. Mrs. Alvarez's phone screen flashed with a quick, grainy photo of Ethan on the steps handing money to Mr. Harlan with Mia and Jonah hovering. She tapped her message to Malik, the local reporter she knew from church bulletins. "You'll want this." The send left a soft sound in the dark. Ethan noticed the way Jonah stared, noticed Maya's fingers curl into the strap of her backpack, noticed the thread of phone light in her palm. He could have folded his hands and left. He felt Claire's warning like a paper cut at the base of his thumb, corporate eyes, reputational risk, but he did not move to retreat. He stepped across the threshold of the building, and the cameras of 3 phones up and down the street angled toward him. The reporter arrived faster than any of them expected. Malik pushed through the small crowd of neighbors, phone held high, voice already projecting. "Sir, can you tell us why you paid this tenant's rent?" he asked. "Are you Ethan Vale of Vale Holdings?" He the name like a bell. Ethan's hand tightened on the railing. He could feel the heat against his palm as a dozen people watched him. He had never liked attention. He had learned to move through it as if he were furniture, efficient, unnoticed. But the envelope had already moved him past the point of calculation. Ethan looked down at Mia Carter, he said, his voice low but steady. He kept his eyes on her face so no one could claim he had come for spectacle. "I paid the landlord. You keep the keys. You keep the apartment tonight." He did not kneel. He did not make a speech. Mr. Harlan took the envelope, grumbled, and pressed the paper receipt into Ethan's hand. "Don't think this makes you a friend," he said. "I collect rent." "Not favors," Malik's recorder hummed. Mrs. Alvarez's phone continued to send 2-second clips into the neighborhood thread. The first emotional shift happened in a scrape of silence after the exchange. Fear to stunned disbelief. Maya could not decide whether to be grateful or ashamed. She stepped forward, hand out as if to push the envelope back. "No," she began. "Maya, it's fine. Jonah, let him help." Maya's cheeks burned. Someone murmured that the photo would run by morning on the local site. Then Malik the question that made Ethan's jaw clench. "Are you married, Mr. Vale? Can you confirm?" He held up his phone, pretending only to be thorough. Ethan's fingers brushed the ring on his right hand, the silver band he had worn for years, and Maya's gaze snagged on it when she moved closer in the doorway. She had seen rings before. She had imagined wedding rings, breaks, arrangements. In her head the ring meant a private life she could not cross. Her next thought was a small, sharp shame. She had let a stranger pay her rent, and the stranger might be unavailable in the way her life needed him to be. She let the assumption become a knot between her ribs. Ethan heard the question like a hand on his ribs. He answered as though the truth were a small instrument. "I am not married," he said. "That ring, it's not a wedding band. It's a ring I wear for a promise to myself." The reporter's phone flashed a light. "Then why wear it?" Malik pressed. Maya saw him look at his hand and, without thinking, asked, "A promise to whom?" Her voice came out thinner than she intended. Jonah glanced at her and then at Ethan, waiting for the answer that would change everything. Ethan looked at the ring like it was something that could be read. To remember a sister,